I need to apologize for something that I have said on the channel before, and it has to do with two connected pawns against a rook. So let me jump over to this position and explain the mistake that I have made, and then we'll come back and talk about this position right here. So this is what I have told you guys on the channel before. Some of you who have seen my previous videos will remember this, but I have said that two connected pass pawns on the 6th rank if you're white, so it'd be like this going this way, or on the 3rd rank if you're black, like these two right here, going here, will always beat a rook. And I believed this to be true until I stumbled upon this position, which actually is an exception to the rule, which we'll come back to in just a second. But the basic idea behind why the two pawns will always beat the rook is that regardless of how the rook tries to stop them, one of them is going to become a queen. And there's nothing that the rook can do, unless, of course, white's king was like in front of the pawns. That would be a different story. But let's just take an example. The rook tries to attack this pawn. Black can simply push the other pawn. And if the rook takes it, black gets the queen. Pretty straightforward. And if the rook tries to stop this one from becoming a queen, black now pushes this pawn. And yes, you can take this pawn, but it doesn't help you because this guy sneaks by and becomes a queen. And regardless of what the rook does, like imagine if you go here, the same problem. This pawn simply pushes. And if you take it, black gets a queen. Also, if you were to try to come down here and come in front like this, same thing. Black simply pushes, threatens your rook. If you take, they get the queen. If you try to move away, well, then they just push and get a queen anyway, and there's still the pawn to capture. However you do it, the rook is not going to be able to stop the pawns. That was the basis for my statement. Two pawns on the 3rd or 6th rank connected past pawns will always beat a rook. Okay, now let's jump back to this position right here. This position, believe it or not, breaks the rule. And it is white to play and draw, not lose. And if you guys would like to pause before I say anything else, how can white save this position, keeping in mind black's about to start pushing these pawns? White to play and not lose. Well, if you had a chance to look at that, the only move that saves the game for white is the move rook to f1. Now, at first glance, you might think, what are we doing with this move? Well, the main idea is that we're trying to come over here to g1, put the king in check, and force him to the side of the board. So for example, if black continues with the plan, which they kind of have to, of pushing the pawns, we play rook to g1 check. And because of the placement of the kings, they're in opposition, it forces black's king to go over here, somewhere on this side of the board. It doesn't really matter where they go. We are going to just simply mirror their king with our king. And essentially what we're doing is threatening checkmate. Like if they try to continue with the plan of going to get a queen, game is over. That's checkmate. And if they try to run, well, we're just going to follow their king. We go up, and again, we're threatening checkmate. You can see how they can't really get away from us unless they come down here to attack our rook. But watch what happens if they do that. They go down, we keep mirroring them. As soon as they go here, they actually lose the game. If you would like to pause, how does white win the game from this position? If you had a chance to look at that, it's the move rook to b1. And we're putting black in Zugzwang where they have no good moves. They don't really want to move the king because the only legal move with the king is to go up here and they get checkmated. But if you look at the pawns, this one is stuck. This is the only other pawn move, but that loses both of their pawns to a fork here with check. They move somewhere and we take it. And we also win. So they just lose. So because of that, they can't come down here. They have to just take the draw and go back and forth. And it's if you get the same position 3 times, the game is a draw. That's what would happen in this scenario. Now, going back all the way to right here, when we played rook to f1 and they played b2, you might be thinking, well, what if they don't play b2? What if they hold off just a minute and try to not let their king get pushed to the side? So maybe they could play a move like king g5 or king g3. And this one is pretty obvious. You don't want to go there because you allow rook to f3 check and you get forked. So that's no good for black. But this one, you might say, well, maybe that could do something for them. Actually, it's a bad move. White also wins the game here. If you would like to pause, how does white win now? If you had a chance to look at that, the move is simply king to d3. And essentially what white is saying is, okay, I've got my rook set up to help stop the pawns. Since black kind of wasted a move by not pushing the pawns and made this king move, I'm going to take this opportunity to bring my king closer and watch what happens. Now, the king is in time to help stopping the pawns along with the rook. And now black can't really do anything. You just take it. And also, if you were to push this pawn, same thing. The king comes over, and notice how this king is stopping this pawn, and this rook is stopping this pawn. There's nothing black can do, and white's going to simply take both of the pawns. So going back to the original position, rook to f1 was kind of a dual threat. It was, number one, you're threatening to go here to set up the checkmate threat along the edge, but you're also helping stop these pawns, and you might consider bringing your king over, right? And so that was kind of the idea. Now, an interesting thing about this position is you might say, well, doesn't rook to f8 do the same thing that rook to f1 does? You're going to go over here, force the king to the side, threaten the checkmates. And the answer is no, it does not, and here's why. After b2, we go for the check. The king moves over here. And remember what we had to do. We had to threaten the checkmate, right? But what do you notice that's different about this position? You get a chance to look at that. The big difference is that the rook is up here instead of down here, which means what? It means the rook's not controlling this square. So black simply gets a queen with check, and we're in trouble. We lose. Now, if our rook was down here and this happened, we would simply take it. So now you can see why this move doesn't work. Okay, so going back to this position, only move to save the game, rook to f1. And going back to my original statement of I made a mistake, I didn't realize that this was a thing. There is a kind of a tricky technique that you can use if your king and rook are positioned in the right way to actually draw against the two pawns. Now, it's rare, and my statement of, two pawns beating the rook is going to be true most of the time, but there are certain tricky situations like this that you want to be aware of when you can save the game if you know the tricks. Hope you guys enjoyed this and learned a thing or two. As always, thanks for watching. Stay sharp, play smart, and take care.